I haven't seen it change from pre to live. Oh, there we go. All right, I think we're live. Well, thank you so much everyone for attending. As we get settled in, please take the time to register your attendance by scanning the QR code in the corner there. This will allow us to, as I said, register your attendance and then make sure you get added to our construction updates. I think we'll just wait a couple more seconds, make sure people have time to log on. All right. Well, my name is Rebecca Hickey. I'm the Communications Corridor Liaison for the Burnet Road Corridor. As I'm sure you can guess, in light of the current COVID-19 restrictions for in-person meetings, we are having our first virtual coffee on the couch. So I hope you found your favorite spot on the couch for this. But we wanted to uphold our commitment to the community to share relevant information about the corridor construction program and specifically for the Burnet Road Corridor. Today, we're going to introduce you to the Corridor Ambassador team. You'll hear from me, Lars Anderson, our project manager, Kathleen Rubin, who is on the Corridors for Complete Communities, and then William Power, who is with Public Works. He'll be available for construction questions at the end. We're going to provide an overview of the improvements specifically for the Burnet Road Breaker Lane intersection. We're going to talk about the upcoming construction, and then Corridors for Complete Communities is going to provide you an update. We'll finish off with a Q&A, so we have about 15 minutes for that. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a Q&A box that will let you send in your questions. I'm sure some of them will pop up throughout the presentation, so please put those in there. When you submit your question, if you would like to include your email address and name, if we can't get to all the questions at the end, that will allow us the ability to follow up with you afterwards. My colleague Jessica is going to be behind the scenes tracking and collecting those, and we'll hopefully have a good discussion with that at the end. This is your Corridor Ambassador team. Lars Anderson, as I mentioned, is the project manager for this corridor. You may have spoken to him at the previous Coffee on the Corridor events at Recycled Reeds. As I said, my name is Rebecca Hickey. I'm the Communications Corridor Liaison. I came onto the team in March, so right before we all went home. William Power is our inspection field engineer. He will be out in the field during construction, making sure everything is going according to plan. And as I said, he's here today to answer any of your general construction questions. Kathleen Rubin is with Corridors for Complete Communities and works on all 9 corridors for the program. So she'll give a brief update on that, but then also specifically for the Burnet Road corridor. Behind the scenes, we have Jessica Engelhart and Jada Simpson. Both of them are part of the communications team, and they will be capturing your questions and feedback. And finally, we wanted to acknowledge our partners at Austin Watershed Protection. They've been working with us throughout this project, specifically on drainage, and we want to recognize their contributions to this corridor. A lot of you probably already know about the corridor program, but I wanted to give a brief overview for those of you who might be new to the program. In 2016, Austin voters approved the mobility bond that provided $482 million for safety and mobility improvements to Austin corridors. Burnet Road is one of those 9 corridors, as you can see them listed here, and it goes between Koenig Lane and Mopac. Each corridor has a mobility plan that the program used to create the schematic, and so now we're in the final design phase of these improvements, and we're going to be kicking off construction soon on Burnet Road. Before we dive into the Burnet Road Breaker Lane improvements themselves, I do want to talk about the need for these improvements. So the Burnet Road corridor has been identified by Vision Zero as a high crash corridor, and it's important that we address those safety needs. Vision Zero data has noted that between March 2015 and September 2020, there have been 167 crashes at this intersection specifically, including 1 person who was killed and another who was seriously injured. 4 of these crashes also involved pedestrians. With the Austin FC Stadium being constructed just off of this corridor and just off of the intersection, as you can imagine, the number of pedestrians and bicyclists in this area is probably going to increase. So it's critical that we get these improvements on the ground before that happens. Another area of focus for this project is the drainage. As you can see on the picture, the current drainage system is a grassy open ditch that collects water from the roadway on both sides, and our improvements are going to be changing that to a closed drainage system. I'm now going to turn it over to Lars to go through the mobility and safety improvements that are being constructed at this intersection and what to expect during construction.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca, and good morning, everyone. I definitely regret not being able to be with you all in person. I hope everyone's doing well with this kind of continued quarantine state. Yeah, so if you've attended our previous Coffee in the Corridors and you're familiar with our improvements here, the first improvement is going to go to construction at this intersection as bicycle and pedestrian facility improvements. Primarily what we're looking at doing here is kind of addressing some of the gaps in the sidewalk network. If you guys have kind of been up in this area, there's quite a few gaps. There's quite a bit of drainage, kind of open flow out there. So we're going to look at just trying to make some of those connections happen so that we can create a safe and continuous ADA network. And we're also looking at kind of expanding some of the ramps at the intersection to kind of allow for heavier ped volumes in that area. We're excited to announce that the Texas Department of Transportation notified us of environmental clearance for the project. This allows our construction to keep moving forward between US 183 and the Mopac Frontage Road, and that would include this intersection at Breaker. We anticipate construction to begin in early 2021 and last approximately 3 to 4 months. So just to kind of go over what to expect, construction is planned to kind of occur daily between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. We want to be upfront with you. There will be some impacts to the traveling public and businesses during construction. We'll have intermittent lane closures to accommodate the sidewalk work. And there will be some bicycle and pedestrian detours or complete closures in place. Some driveway access may also be impacted as we kind of do that work. Give us just a second so I can kind of show you what's going on here a little bit closer. Okay, so you should see my little bubble profile picture there. So basically, for context here, and hopefully you guys can see this exhibit all right, but for context, north is to the right on your screen. Mopac runs near parallel to Burnet Road at this point, about 3/4 of a mile to the west. At the far top left is going to be JJ Pickle campus, that UT campus up here. The domain is just off the screen and then kind of in the top right here. The new Austin FC soccer stadium is kind of called out right there, and you can actually see this is a recent aerial photo, so you can see kind of how far along that's come. So this has definitely been something we've been working towards, trying to just prepare better connections and network here. So just to kind of go over some of where the gaps are, and I know this is pretty small, but primarily the gaps that we're kind of concerned with are going to be on the east side of the roadway, so that would be kind of along here. We've just got a number of gaps that kind of just, I think Rutland's going to be just to the south of this exhibit here, and there's a decent existing sidewalk kind of between Rutland and this point. We're going to look at kind of trying to make finishing that network out and continuing the sidewalk up here all the way to the Breaker intersection on the east side. Once you get to the Breaker intersection, there are sidewalks along Breaker Lane, so that primarily is pretty good. There's a couple gaps there too, but we're unfortunately not going to be able to get to those as kind of the limits of this project. We're also looking at kind of filling some of the gaps then on the north of the Breaker Lane intersection, and this would primarily kind of be once you get back up here. There's kind of McDonald's and some fast food chain restaurants up here that's got some sidewalk. as we continue to go further north, we're going to look at kind of making some more of those connections up to Kramer. And then just off screen here is going to be Esperanza. So we'll be kind of just looking at trying to make those connections. And again, one of the big reasons we're wanting to do this is because we expect, you know, many people to come to the soccer games whenever that kind of opens up again. So we just want to be prepared. We want to create kind of that continuous network to allow for, you know, if not ideal, at least acceptable kind of paths and space for people to get to those games. And then just to highlight one more area, we do have kind of a couple small gaps here on the west side as well. And so along with a couple, and I guess I should have mentioned this, along with a couple new connections to the Burnet roadway, there's actually a bridge project under construction right now at the domain. And so this will actually be creating another access point to the domain here. There'll be some sidewalk along that parcel. And then this part I meant to mention earlier, this will actually be a new signalized intersection for the Austin FC stadium. And so when that comes in, you know, there will also be some access there. So, okay, I think we'll kind of move on then. Go ahead and stop my little profile there. Technical difficulties. We're almost there.
Yeah, I'm not. Hold on. Let me just go to the next one. I think it's bugging out for a minute. All right.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so the future roadway and drainage improvements will most likely go to construction in 2022 or later. And this work is going to be a much heavier scope, so we're going to be looking at doing kind of quite a bit more improvements at that point, including kind of an upgraded drainage system to close piping to support the mobility improvements. If you guys have been kind of at this intersection of Burnet and Breaker, there's a pretty huge drainage ditch on the northwest corner. So we're actually going to be kind of covering that up and opening up more space for kind of an ideal pedestrian and cyclist connections. Upgraded traffic signal. Right now it's just kind of span wires, and we'll be turning that into kind of a full signal pole. Additional left turn lanes to make dual left turns at the east and west approaches, and also actually at the north and south approaches. We're looking at doing kind of full dual left turns at all four of those, and you guys would certainly be aware. I know I am when I'm driving at rush hour in this area that it's pretty crazy. So those dual lefts will definitely kind of alleviate some of that congestion. We're also looking at doing some bus stop improvements, and this is exciting. There will be a new Metro Rapid station, well, two stations, I suppose, at the Breaker Lane intersection. So that's going to kind of create a new connection for transit riders who would be going to this area or leaving from this area. We'll also be doing some pavement rehabilitation, kind of standard maintenance, and then we're going to be reconstructing kind of some medians as well as adding some candlesticks. So these are kind of like those stakes that will channelize flow and kind of enhance safety when we come up to the intersection. And then lastly, just kind of inlets and culverts. So just kind of you know, necessary stuff for the drainage system. So let me kick it back to Rebecca now. She's going to kind of walk through the communications and community engagement that you can expect ahead of kind of this near-term construction, as well as kind of in that longer term, that 2022 timeframe. So,
thanks, Lars. So as you mentioned, there are going to be some temporary impacts to the traveling public and potentially driveway access. So as part of our outreach and specifically leading up to the bike and ped improvements, we're going to be reaching out to businesses to discuss access with them. We are still finalizing the traffic control plan for that, but we want to make sure that we have an open line of communication between the program and the business owners, especially because things with construction can move rather quickly. We want to make sure that we're able to get them those updates as quickly as possible. Part of that includes doing block walking, so going door to door to make sure that businesses are aware of who we are and we can have those discussions with them, holding one-on-one meetings. And then additionally, we're going to offer business access signage that will include the business's name and pointing to a temporary driveway if that's necessary, so that we can facilitate those access changes to businesses. So you can see that example on the picture here. Our communication to the traveling public is another big item that we want to make sure we're keeping up. And so with the traveling public and the rest of the businesses at this intersection, we're going to be proactive and consistent with that communication. We're going to provide updates on lane closures, potential delays, delays on impacts, and timelines via the corridor email blast. So make sure you sign up for that to receive those. We'll also be engaged on social media via Twitter and Nextdoor. And then larger milestones like completion dates, things like that will be announced in the 2016 Mobility Bond newsletter. And finally, we're going to be adding a corridor construction webpage to our current program website, and that will house all the construction projects happening across all 9 corridors. This is specific to, it's not specific to our bike and ped improvements coming up. This will probably be the model that we follow for all other construction on the corridor, so you can kind of expect that consistency. I'm going to turn this over to Kathleen Rubin, and she is going to provide an update on the work the Corridors for Complete Communities team has been doing.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. I think just waiting for my control of the slide to pop up. Like Rebecca mentioned, my name's Kathleen Rubin, and I'm a member of the Corridors for Complete Communities team at the Corridor Program Office. And I want to provide a little bit of background about what we do in our division and how it helps to support the mobility and safety improvements that Lars just walked through for not only Burnet Road, but all 9 corridors across the program. So when the 2016 Mobility Bond was passed, Council included a contract with the voters that provided us direction to not only meet the safety and mobility improvements in those corridor plans, but to also address community considerations and social outcomes along our corridors, including making connections to places, services, and amenities along our corridor. So I'm sharing this graphic here just to really highlight the number of exciting amenities that exist along all 9 corridors. What we do on our team is, next slide, I don't think I have control to do that. What we do on our team is take a look at the streetscape that we're updating. So here you see a section of Riverside Drive where we've included both a bicycle path and a pedestrian walkway. And we look to enhance those locations through smart urban design choices, through things like tree plantings and landscaping, through art in public places and other artistic interventions that can occur along the corridors, and really just generally help working to infuse culture and identity into the roadways where you all live, work, drive, walk, bike, and hang out. So I'll speak specifically to Burnet Road now, and this will be an overview of what we're doing across the entire corridor, not just that Burnet and Breaker intersection. But there are a number of opportunities that we've already started working on, and a number of opportunities that are still to come. So this image here on this slide is a pocket green opportunity at the location, at the intersection rather, of Burnet Road and Allendale. So what we are doing as a program is narrowing White Rock Drive as you take a right turn into both Lamar Middle School and the church there. As a result of that realignment of the intersection, there's extra space, extra public right-of-way that we can, as a team, provide enhancements that do a number of things and meet a number of important outcomes to members of the community. For one, we will be installing street trees along both edges of that intersection, of that pocket green, providing shade for pedestrians and protection for the folks, probably mostly middle schoolers, that gather along this corner as they cross over to the HEB parking lot or over to Walgreens. What you can't see on this image is that there will be a new pedestrian hybrid beacon or a signalized crossing from this pocket green location over to the HEB. So we were really focused on providing a safe space for these students to gather, for folks that are using the corridor to get from one place to another that may need a point of respite in the shade, or for folks that are gathering at the bus stop just at the corner of Burnet and Allendale that may also enjoy that shaded pathway and a place to rest as they're waiting for their bus. In addition to this pocket green opportunity, which is in our Burnet C1 segment, which I guess that means nothing to the public, so our Burnet and Koenig segment that is going into construction sometime in 2021, we have a few opportunities that we're in the earlier stages of planning right now. Through our bond funding, we have Art in Public Places, and that is a program that is run by the Economic Development Department, where they work to bring artists onto the corridors to envision with the community a artistic element that helps meet the goals of the corridor. So there will be some engagement led by that artist once they are brought on board to help define both what the artwork looks like and where it is located along the corridor, though we do know it will be located somewhere in the southern end of our Burnet Road segment, our Burnet Road corridor rather. There are a number of other opportunities that we've identified along the corridors, both through community engagement and our own technical expertise about locations where we have extra right-of-way, like this pocket green location, where we're hoping to include additional placemaking and gathering spaces, elements that help identify Burnet Road as a special and unique corridor with its own identity. And so we're in the early stages of evaluating from an engineering perspective which of those locations make sense. And then we'll start to engage with community members about the what once we define the potential for the where. And so that's all I have for you today. I'll pass it back over to Rebecca now.
Thanks, Kathleen. So if you'd like to stay up to date on either the corridors for complete communities or on the Burnet Road construction, you can scan our QR code right here to sign up for those emails. You can also email us at burnet@austintexas.gov or give us a call to speak to us if you have any questions or concerns. If you're if you're a business owner and think you might be impacted by the upcoming construction and you want to discuss it further, please reach out to us and we can definitely set up a time to talk. That's it for our presentation today. We're going to move into our Q&A section. So I think there is at least one question that someone had. So Lars and I, and then Kathleen and William will be on standby to answer those. But Jessica, do you want to let us know what the first question is?
Sure. The first question is from Joe Reynolds, and he's asking where the presentations will be available for download.
Thanks, Joe. So this presentation is being recorded and it will be uploaded to the Burnet corridor webpage. So that's austintexas.gov/Burnet. We'll post it there in the Coffee on the Corridor section either tomorrow or early next week.
And the second question, this is the last question we've received so far, is also from Joe. He's asking if there will be right-of-way acquisitions or land condemnations as part of these projects.
If he's speaking specifically for the bike and pedestrian improvements, I'll let Lars jump in here too, but I don't believe there are any right-of-way acquisitions for the bike ped improvements. There are some right-of-way acquisitions at this intersection for future improvements, but Lars, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, so that's pretty much right on. So for these kind of earlier projects, there's no right-of-way impacts. We're kind of keeping everything within that kind of existing footprint. For the longer term impacts, there will be some right-of-way acquisitions. I don't know off the top of my head how many, but we're kind of working through that right now in terms of kind of what that would look like, and we'll be kind of shifting. We're working with those property owners basically on the kind of acquisition impacts and the timeline and you know, all that comes with that process. So.
Great, thanks, Lars. And I think a couple more people have joined in the last 10-15 minutes or so. So if you have any questions on the right-hand side, there will be a Q&A box and you can put your questions in there. And my colleague Jessica is collecting those and reading those off. So Jessica, have there been any other questions that have come in?
Yes, another question came in, no name on this one, but they're asking on the new domain bridge connection, what does bike and pedestrian infrastructure look like?
Lars, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can tell you that there definitely is bike and pedestrian infrastructure on that, but I don't think I'm at liberty necessarily to discuss the details of that project. I would recommend that you might kind of be able to reach out to. We can try to maybe follow up on that and see if we can get some more information for you on it, but I don't want to necessarily say details on a different project by others.
So whoever, I guess, asked that question, if you just want to follow up with your email address, we can reach out to you with some more information.
We received another follow-up question. Again, no name associated with this one, and I don't know if we have more information to share on this or not, but they're interested in knowing what other locations have been identified for right-of-way improvements.
So I think they might be, I'll just infer that they might mean right-of-way acquisitions. There are several parcels along the corridor that the city will be acquiring some right-of-way from. We are working through those discussions right now, but in terms of specific areas, it's kind of just sprinkled out throughout the corridor, right, Lars?
Yeah, that's correct. There just are areas where the right-of-way gets pretty tight. That typically is at an intersection where you know, there's additional turn lanes at that intersection, and so either we're going to kind of be expanding a little bit more into private property, or it's so tight already that we kind of just want to get a little bit more space to create a you know, an adequate facility.
Yeah, and we're working directly with those property owners to talk to them about the projects and the process, and just make sure that they're aware of our plans, and we can have those discussions with them.
We received another question, no name associated with this one either, but the question is, where would the 2 new Metro Rapid stops be, or is that still being discussed?
Yeah, I can speak to that one. So we've been working with Cap Metro on those stops for quite a while. And kind of our best guess at this point, or I should say, what we're almost finalized on, is to have kind of 2 stops along Burnet Road, and they would be what's called far side of the intersection. So this is typically like a best practice or a better practice that Cap Metro has been kind of working with us on for across the corridor. So yeah, they would be kind of along Burnet Road and just past the intersection. So the bus would go through the intersection, stop, pick up passengers, and then continue on its way. So that as I understand it, tends towards kind of better signal efficiency and kind of allows the buses to kind of make their timetables a little bit more reliably and on time. So also creates more of an opportunity for vehicles to kind of turn right or other things, not get stuck behind a bus before the intersection, if that makes sense. So.
And Joe has asked a follow-up question about the availability of this this video. He's asking whether the presentation will also be made available, I assume via download.
Oh, the slides themselves? Yeah, we can make those slides available in that same section that I mentioned earlier.
Great. That is all of the questions that have come in so far.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining in and participating. As I said, there are different ways that you can get a hold of us. So either you can email us at burnet@austintexas.gov, or you can give us a call. The numbers are listed on our webpage, austintexas.gov/Burnet. And if you have any other questions, then feel free to reach out. And if you haven't signed in yet, if you want to go ahead and register so we can get your info, and I can go back to that slide because I think some of you joined late. This might be a bit of a headache for people watching, but if you scan that QR code, you can sign up for updates and register your attendance here so we can follow up with you after.
Guys, one more question just came in, and the question is, what is the current word on plans for dedicated transit lanes in the unfunded improvements?
So I think that was a big question that we had during the public hearing. At this time, the additional travel lanes that are proposed in the unfunded improvements, those haven't been specifically allocated towards a transit or towards vehicles, but that's something that would be decided further in the process when the unfunded improvements do get funded and we go through that design process and collect feedback from the public. So I guess the short answer is at this point it's still yet to be determined. Lars, do you want to add on to anything there?
No, I think you got it, Rebecca. Yeah, on that one, you know, there's definitely a lot in flux as to kind of how the unfunded plan would move forward, and so, you know, there's nothing that would preclude the ability for us to kind of move forward the, you know, kind of that option at that time. But you know, that's a kind of a heavy public engagement effort and one that Cap Metro would be heavily invested and involved in as well. So.
All right, I think unless anything else came in, Jess, I think that might conclude our presentation. So thank you everyone so much for joining, and hopefully we'll be back out in person sometime next year.